I said, let me reset, as they say in the business. We're talking about the Niners. Brock Purdy has a concussion. He probably won't play Sunday.
Possibly.
No, it's a concussion, Kyle. It's a concussion. All right? So he probably won't play. We're going to see Sam Darnold. And
Sammy!
The question is, what are the 49ers going to look like with Sam Darnold? And maybe they don't skip a beat. Maybe we watch the 49ers on Sunday and we say, well, that looks pretty similar to Brock Purdy. Okay. If that happens, well, then what?
You go back to Brock Purdy. Because let's be honest. I keep using recycled material, but it's the foul pole in baseball. The fair thing to do, it's not a little sample size you got from Brock Purdy. That would be extreme. Now, the last two games, not his best. But, Steiny, I don't believe, and I brought it up, but I should have brought it up with multiple games if we saw 3 or 4 from Sam Darnold to where you got a large sample size. And you're right. It ain't going to happen in one game. And I don't expect it to, no matter if he threw for 5 tugs.
And maybe this is what people consider a hypothetical, but it actually wasn't a hypothetical a few years back. And if Sam Darnold, if Brock Purdy were to get banged up and Sam Darnold were to quarterback 6 regular season games in a playoff game,
man,
and go 5-1 and then win a playoff game, and then maybe lose a playoff game, all I'm saying is I believe Kyle Shanahan has the kind of confidence / ego that would allow him to believe that he can win with a variety of different quarterbacks. And the idea of having to pay one huge money and occupy a large percentage of the salary cap, I'm starting to think that part of his strategy is to not do that. I don't believe they want to pay a quarterback big money.
So
I just don't.
Can I respond to that when you?
Yeah, I guess if they win two Super Bowls with Brock Purdy, yeah, they're going to pay him. But I think Kyle thinks he can win with a lesser than superstar quarterback.
I'm hearing you, Steiny, but when I hear you, I think you think if I use that thought process, what about the draft pick and the moving of mountains to get Trey Lance? He wanted that, I believe, to work out. And at some juncture, had it worked out and Trey Lance had the goods, he was going to get a bag.
Right.
And he was going to get a bag
well, who's going to get a bag?
Trey Lance.
Well, he wasn't even close to getting a bag.
No, but the point was when they drafted him,
right. And what happened?
He panned out.
And he moved off him.
Right.
But he moves off quarterbacks.
Right. But the hope was that I don't believe Kyle Shanahan was like, I don't want Trey not to ball so we don't have to pay him.
No, of course not. So that's not what I'm saying.
Right. Had Trey delivered his part of it, and it worked out, and he was their next franchise quarterback, I'm just saying at that juncture, it would have been a marriage made in heaven, and Trey Lance would have been getting a big contract. Let me
ask you this. If Brock Purdy, or rather Trey Lance, came onto this team, like Trey Lance's upside, what we all thought was possible was that he could be a dynamic quarterback in the mold of some of the running quarterbacks and play extenders.
And here for the next 10 years.
Fair.
Okay.
If he would have been that kind of quarterback, then you would have had to pay him a lot of money.
Right.
And we would have noticed that he plays a different way. Hey, he plays a little like Lamar Jackson. He plays a little like Mahomes.
He's special.
He's really good. Right. Yeah. Brock Purdy is never going to wow somebody into paying him, into making him the highest paid quarterback in the NFL.
But even if he was the quarterback or the maestro of this offense and you win a Super Bowl or 2, you think Kyle would still go to that theory of I can do it with Johnny 2-time?
I think it's possible.
Wow.
I'm not saying he would.
I don't.
Okay. And
I believe that's what you aim for is like what Minnesota has with Kirk Cousins with some Super Bowls. You know.
Well, that's my point is how close has Kirk Cousins gotten to a Super Bowl?
Well, he won the playoff game against the Saints.
One playoff game.
Yeah, one playoff win.
One playoff game.
Yeah.
And I can't believe you just said the Kirk Cousins model.
And that was just stability. He's been there for a minute, you know?
And here's the other thing I keep thinking about, and I get it. You can take the opposite point of view.
And I ain't just doing that. Yeah.
No. A lot of people are gonna disagree.
I think Kyle wants nothing more than to pay his quarterback that he feels is Mahomes-like or whatever.
But they're not. He's not going to be Mahomes-like. Nobody is. Nobody is going to be Mahomes-like.
Now that's it. To Kyle, you mean?
To the world. Like, he's one of a kind, Patrick Mahomes. One of a kind. Nobody's going to be Patrick Mahomes.
Well, I got to be careful.
It certainly ain't going to be Brock Purdy.
Okay, so here I go. There's LeBron James. There's Kawhi Leonard when healthy. But you love your star, and there's Steph Curry.
Right.
So we know Steph is not LeBron James, but he's he's different. But he's yours.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, okay, forget Mahomes,
right,
but Purdy could be the commander of this offense, and they could be winning chips. My thing is, why would you deviate from that? Because of money and risk starting over and taking a step back at the quarterback position?
Because you're going to lose your weapons. Like, I got news for you. In 2 years, you can't pay Purdy $40 million and still have all your weapons and Trent Williams and Bosa and the best linebackers in football. And
isn't the hardest thing to get through the draft, though, Steiny, a quarterback, a winning quarterback?
I don't know. Apparently not to Kyle Shanahan.
Well, he's been striking out. And
How
now
do you figure? He got Purdy.
Mullins.
That's
Trey
not
Lance.
A strikeout. I'm sorry. You move up to the third round and a guy plays on your team. He thought he saw somebody he didn't. That was
my point is he hadn't fell in love. And the guy that he put the ring on didn't have it good.
He
Trey
didn't
Lance.
That's my point. Even though we think he put a ring on Lance, I don't think he did. They just got him. They just brought him in.
No.
They never paid him.
The price to bring him in was a ring on the finger to me.
It wasn't, clearly.
Well,
like, it wasn't a ring on the finger, was it?
I think he loves what he's seeing from Brock Purdy. If Brock can stay at this level of not the last two games, what we've seen thus far. It's an interesting thought, Steiny. The hardest thing it's a quarterback league, and when you get one, if Purdy ends up being that one, I don't think Kyle wants to move off of that.
Well, they've had two now. They've had Garoppolo and now Purdy. So he's proven with these two guys he can have success. Hey, how good are these two guys? They're okay. They're okay.
Yeah,
they're
Jimmy,
not. They're not. They're not elite. But I got news for you. We've been to 3 out of the last 4 NFC championships, and we think we're going again with Brock Purdy.
Give me this though about Jimmy. I believe there were times Kyle laid on his pillow or drove to the facility early on, Steiny, thinking he had an above-average quarterback.
I think that John Lynch talked him into it, the trade, and I think Kyle Shanahan said, okay, let's take a look at this guy. I don't think Shanahan said, this guy stinks. I think Shanahan's like, all right, let me see what this guy's got. And by and large, Garoppolo was
an upgrade for what you had.
Exactly. He was an upgrade. And then somewhere along the line,
that's it. I just don't think Kyle thinks like you think it's Donnie. I'll just say night-night or bye-bye to Brock Purdy if they're winning Super Bowls and he's got a command and a flow like we've seen up into the last couple of weeks. Okay. I think that's what
he's not going to get paid. He will never be paid as a top 5 quarterback. How about that? Wow, Brock Purdy will never
it's hard for
be
me
paid
to say that.
Like a top 5 quarterback.
I'll tell you this.
Ever.
All right, I'm going to put some mayonnaise on it, mustard on it.
Come on, bet me.
If he keeps up what he's been doing.
He still won't.
And he's a top 5. We were just talking about MVP discussion, everything. I believe they would have no problem writing that check for him.
No.
If he were that guy. If they felt he was that guy.
Who are like the top 5 quarterbacks money-wise? Rodgers makes what?
Lamar, Herbert, Burrow, Rodgers,
they all north of 40, 50?
Mahomes. Yeah, like 45, 50.
Yeah, so in 2 years, it'll be 55.
All right.
No chance. There's no way.
But I feel like you're answering
Put it in the cap.
You're trying to pass the test without seeing the question. Like, a lot can happen in 2 years.
I've seen Brock Purdy quarterback for a year.
Oh, okay.
And I think he's pretty good.
Yeah.
But he is not a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, nor can you pay him like that. I don't think. Jimmy was once the highest paid quarterback.
I was just going there.
That's right. But they had backloaded that. It wasn't guaranteed. And essentially they were like, yeah, we'll give you 25 for 2 years, and then we can get off.
But he was, though, Steiny. He was making big bank.
For 1 year. What I'm saying is, yeah, you know what? Fine. They'll pay Brock Purdy. If they pay him like a top 5, which they won't, they'll have so many protectors at the back end of that contract. It's going to be unbelievable.
Do you guys think that the Garoppolo contract would actually be a reason why Shanahan wouldn't give Brock Purdy big money? That he learned his lesson from overpaying for a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo.
And they were overzealous. Those 5 games, according to who you talked to, I thought they meant nothing because you weren't playing for anything, but they looked at it like, this is our guy.
Well, they're going to get to see Purdy for 2 years. The 49ers are going to get to see Brock Purdy for 2 years.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm asking you and Evan, from what you've seen thus far, the last 2 games included, because it's damn near A- or A+, would you write the check?
No. For who?
Brock.
For how much?
Well, top 5.
No. Oh, my God, no.
Whatever it takes to keep them.
No. Absolutely not.
So you wouldn't say it's trending that way?
No. I mean.
So you're saying it's no shame. So you're saying what Shannon Sharp was saying. He's a product. He's a system quarterback.
Listen, I'm not saying he's average. I'm not saying he's a system quarterback. But at some
point, you're going to have to answer that question.
You can be a franchise quarterback and not make $48 million a year. So I'm just saying right now, if I had a bet, Brock Purdy will never be among the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL, ever. And let me throw this one at you because you disagree with this too, and that's fine.
Well, no, go ahead.
So the idea that if Garoppolo would have won a Super Bowl, he'd still be here.
He would have got 2. There's no doubt, Matt. My point is, real quick, Trey Lance would not have been drafted.
Maybe not.
They wouldn't have had that wandering eye.
Okay. Let me tell you something. Here's what I believe. How long was Jimmy Garoppolo here? 5 years?
Yeah.
6, okay. 5, 6 years. Right. And Shanahan had seen him day in and day out and day in and day out. And I think we could all agree he didn't really trust him. Wasn't crazy about him. But he would, I do not believe. Well, I don't want to say it like that. I want to leave the possibility open. I don't want to say something's definite. Yeah. But, so you're telling me.
I'm right here.
That Kyle Shanahan would have an entirely different view of Garoppolo had he hit Sanders.
Not only that.
I don't.
Had he not got hurt and the seasons went kaput like they did. So I believe Jimmy's injuries are part of the reason to where they were let down because they had nothing behind them to sustain the season. So, we have fun with that Sanders pass. It was bigger than that.
No, it wasn't.
But losing, because I've come off of that. I feel like Kyle's looking at himself more than Jimmy in that missed pass. My point is, I watched it, and I believe I watched it with Joe Flacco in Baltimore, and I would do the same. There's something for winning the Super Bowl to where I don't believe Trey Lance would have got drafted. Steiny.
That's possible. That's very possible. But I don't think one throw would have made Shanahan say, let's pay this guy big money, Garoppolo, for
what about the high ankle sprain he suffered against the Seahawks, and the season went down the drain, and then the injury against he saw Jimmy was getting hurt all the time.
Right, that definitely was part of it. Right. And you know what? Maybe I'm being a jerk, but guess who's been hurt twice in one season? Brock Purdy.
No, I get it, but so we got 2 more years to see.
Fine. And maybe in 2 years, we'll be talking about Brock Purdy being injury prone.
And Steiny, the genesis of this debate is I believe Kyle wants to find his Kirk Cousins. And if he did, he would pay him. Now, I'm not saying that means the guy's throwing for 6,000 yards and 80 touchdowns. But I believe that's what he wanted Trey Lance to be. I'm tired of going to the club. I want to be married.
And you know what I think now? Okay, you go up and you move, and it's Trey Lance. And he plays 3 years on a rookie deal.
Yeah.
And then if he's a Lamar Jackson, or if he is a Tom Brady, or if he's a Patrick Mahomes, of course you're going to pay him. But if he's not, why would you pay him?
And they didn't.
That's right, because he's so fickle. He brought Trey Lance in. He gave up 2 picks. He looked at him for a couple years, and he's like, out. Can't do it. Okay? What about Purdy? Can Purdy do it? With these weapons, yes, Purdy can do it. But he's still not Herbert. He's still not an elite quarterback.
Yeah. So you're saying, if I hear you correctly, Kyle's ego is bigger than the quarterback at hand that's having the success because he feels like he can do it with a bunch of people. That's what it sounds like you're saying. Kyle's ego is like, you know what? No. Hey, Brock, you're doing a great job. Well, I could find 4 other guys that could do it. And I ain't got to pay him.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a negative or arrogance. It is turned into, whether we like it or not, the fact that Brock Purdy is making $800,000 a year is a monster part of this team. It just is. It is
Nobody would argue
a strategic and personnel advantage. It's unbelievable.
But they lucked into it.
Okay. They did.
Because they tried to do something else to where they would have had to pay Trey had he been balling. And they probably would have been smiling
Trey's
to
different.
Pay him.
The kind of quarterback Trey Lance, they hoped he would become, could have been a $40 million quarterback or 50 had he shown that.
Yeah.
Purdy is never going to be that kind of guy. That he blows you away with this, that, and the other thing. He's just not.
I'm blown away that I feel like you're putting a cap on.
I am
on Brock Purdy.
I am.
No matter what he does.
He doesn't have the upside of Lamar Jackson.
Even if he guides the team this year to a Super Bowl.
If he guides the team this year to a Super Bowl, he's a great game manager who had a really good year. And guess what? We have more weapons on this team than any team in the NFL. I would much rather be the 49ers right now than the Chiefs. I would much rather have the weapons the 49ers have with a guy like Purdy than paying a great quarterback all that money without enough weapons.
Well, the weapon is Mahomes, and they're in the midst of a dynasty. I mean, they've got 2. They've been to 3. Right. You know, the old line was.
But for the 8 millionth time, there are no other Mahomes. I'm not talking about Mahomes because they don't grow on trees.
We're not talking about Mahomes. We're talking about Kyle falling in love with a quarterback.
Purdy grows on trees.
Okay. No. Oh, okay.
Mahomes does not.
That's yet to be written, but I know what you're talking about. But, Steiny, this is more so about Kyle. And I feel like the fact that he went left and drafted Trey Lance shows you if he would have panned out, he wanted nothing more than pay a guy $40 million or hope he could raise him to get to that juncture.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
Right.
So that's even though it didn't work out, it's proof right there. He thought about, if this thing works, I'm going to pay him.
Who's to say that he could have drafted Lance, liked Lance, and then said, you know what? We're not paying Lance $45 million as he comes off the rookie deal.
But that's a gamble. Then you got to replace Lance.
Okay. You did. You did. Well, he's replaced everybody.
Wow. You got kind of lucky, but you drafted.
Well, of course, but he doesn't think it's luck, Goo. He doesn't think it's luck. And here's the other thing that maybe, and you know what? The 49ers, let's say they stumbled into this. Let's say you're not going to give them any credit.
There's some feel to that, okay.
Okay, and you stumbled into it.
All right.
Okay, and now what the 49ers see is they've got a guy who ain't bad for $800,000 a year. So he's making zero, essentially. What the team that allows you to build, the team that you can build around a quarterback like that will be more talented than every other team in the league if you do it right. Because you're not paying your quarterback all the money to take up the cap. So I think one of the big reasons the 49ers have all the weapons they have is because Brock Purdy doesn't make any money. So if you can have success with Purdy, a guy like Purdy, why wouldn't you say internally as a strategy, man, I think one thing we should really try to do is make sure or see if we can get a quarterback under financial control to the point where they're not making $50 million a year.
Oh, Steiny,
Well, then why didn't they go get Brady?
Because I think Kyle is a control freak. But before I even answer that, I just did. Steiny, to me, coaches and GMs and owners would give their left arm to get a franchise quarterback.
Stop saying Mahomes.
And they would. Well,
he didn't even go first.
No, my point is they would be okay with, yeah, we know we don't have this and that over there, but we got our Joe Montana or our Peyton
He's not
Manning.
Joe Montana.
I'm not calling him that. I'm saying that's the goal.
Right.
You're acting like it's bad. You think Kansas City's not happy breaking off Mahomes, whatever he's making, or the Colts with Peyton Manning?
You're misunderstanding. I'm not saying. First of all, once again, you use Montana, Mahomes, and Peyton Manning.
All right, let's do Lamar
Three of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
I think Baltimore really is behind Lamar Jackson. He's yet to win.
Okay.
I think they're happy paying him that chicken.
Okay. That's their organization.
Yeah.
The 49ers might be a different organization. They are a different organization. They got a guy who's at the top, Kyle Shanahan, who has a history of being able to be very competitive without the best quarterback in the league.
Right. But give us this. When he went and got Trey Lance, he thought he had something special.
Yes, he did.
Right.
And if he was special, they'd pay him.
Right.
But
that's an example of it didn't work out.
And he moved off him.
Right. No doubt about it. But the point is, that's going against what you're saying is he's not aiming for the stars to where he wants to pay it. It sounds like you're saying that he don't want to pay him 40 or 50, whoever the quarterback would be.
He would prefer not to. Absolutely,
I
positively.
think the drafting of Trey Lance begs to differ. That's all.
You came into the show today, and we came into the show today agreeing that one of the things about Kyle Shanahan that is absolutely positively apparent is he kind of treats players like commodities.
Yeah.
Okay.
Remember the 400 touches for Mayo? Go ask me. Like, yeah, he's a football player.
And so if you acknowledge that, then why would the quarterback position be any different? If we all agree Kyle Shanahan kind of treats players like commodities, why should we say he doesn't do that with a quarterback position?
Because he went and wasted draft capital to get something he thought was going to be blockbuster, I believe, for the next 10 years.